Right, hello, and welcome to a special Opinions Anonymous presentation. This is going to be the first episode of Luke's movie reviews, where friend Luke and his epic search to both become a verified Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
What are the qualifications that we're going for?
I have to curse less, I think, on my reviews to get it to be verified by Rotten Tomatoes, and I have to review, I think, like a ton of movies, like maybe a million. I don't know. Rotten Tomatoes does not like me currently, so I'm out to prove them wrong, and also to hit the 1,000 movie mark rating on IMDb, and to branch that into like several thousand, and to prove that I have no life. I think is the overarching goal here.
Well, I think the fact that we're both here on a football Sunday would prove that we have no lives.
Yes.
But moving on past that excellent point. So what we're trying to do here is, Luke is a huge movie lover. I am, I guess, less of a movie lover than you are, but very supportive, and I trust your judgment. So I'm looking to you to recommend some good movies, and we'll get some recommendations from viewers, listeners as well as we do this. Don't really know how regularly we're going to be able to do it. Might be a monthly thing. It'll kind of just be when we think there's something worth doing, I think, rather than like a weekly or monthly or whatever. So just when we have something.
And I think another goal of ours is not necessarily to go out and watch the biggest blockbuster film. We want to maybe bring some lower movies that you've maybe never heard of that could be worth your time. I think that's what we're searching for out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we had one today. I mean, I don't know, Andy. We'll get into thoughts shortly about that.
Yes, yeah, we definitely will. So for first timers, those of you who don't know us, I'm Andy. This is Luke. Luke is the mastermind behind Luke's movie reviews and has been wanting to do this for a really long time. So I'm really excited to kick it off. I don't know how excited I am to kick it off with this movie in particular, but we'll see how it goes.
We may end up fighting by the end of this. I don't know. Could happen.
Okay, so the movie that we watched this week is called The Perfection. It's a Netflix original. It stars Allison Williams and Logan Browning, or I guess who I would say the two leads are.
Yeah.
Allison Williams being the bigger star of the
And Allison Williams from Get Out, very popular movie in the recent years. Lizzie, or Logan Browning plays Lizzie in the movie. Nothing really of substance, I would say.
There were a lot of people in this, like between her and between the instructors at the school, which we'll get into the plot in a bit. But there were a lot of people that I felt like I knew.
You've seen them?
I've seen them. Like I could not tell you any. It really surprised me after I watched the movie. I went back and looked at the cast list. I, of course, knew Allison Williams from a million things.
Yeah.
Right? But going through, I was like, oh, I think I know who Lizzie is. Like, I got to figure out what that actress's name is. And I was like, Logan, I don't even know who. Yeah, that's not a name that I've ever heard before.
Right, that's not a popular.
Kind of caught me by surprise.
Yeah,
but a lot of people that, or at least if they're not recognizable, they've got like just generic features,
super recognizable features
that you can put with anybody.
Yeah.
So, moving on, let's start with kind of our general feelings on the movie, without getting into the plot too much. We'll kind of do a rundown of the plot and kind of our observations along the way, but just in general, as a feature film, what did you think of this?
So in general, when I watched the trailer for The Perfection, which watching trailers is probably like a sliver below watching movies. I could watch trailers all day. I love it. And I watched it and I'm like, that seems really interesting. It's kind of looks a little dark, but you don't really know how dark. And I am a huge thriller fan, a huge horror movie fan, and it's so tough to find good ones that I watch so many bad ones. So, and I've been hit and miss with Netflix originals in the past, but I was actually on a plane going to Chicago, and I decided to watch The Perfection. So going in, I was just very open-minded, and I didn't have a lot of expectations, but there were several points in the movie where out loud, like on a plane full of people, or even at the airport where I ended up finishing it, I said, holy shit, or like, what the fuck? Like, out loud several times, and people are probably looking at me. But this movie made me audibly gasp almost at several things.
That I can totally imagine you doing that. Yeah. I want to jump back to the point about Netflix originals. So I knew this was a Netflix original. So going to search rather than, I don't know why I do this. I feel like it can't just be me that does this. Whenever I'm searching Netflix, even if I'm searching for something in particular, I'll try to find it like in the right category,
right?
Or like be like, okay, yeah, action movies. Okay, I'm looking for like Indiana Jones, and rather than just searching that, I'll like go and try to scroll through.
That's
all
just
of them.
you, yeah.
Okay, but so anyway, I tried to do that with this, and I went to the Netflix originals page, and I guess I didn't realize how many are out there because like I'd seen, I kind of realized as I found this movie that I had seen a trailer for it. So I'm like, oh, I can't believe that it wouldn't be like, something that I could find easily on this page. But their library now is so ridiculous that
I mean, Adam Sandler himself has like 42 movies.
And I think a contract for like a couple hundred more.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was that kind of took me by surprise. But I've liked a lot of things that Netflix has done originally. So I had pretty high hopes going into it. I couldn't make heads or tails of this movie. It was there. So to me, it wasn't like it wasn't a movie to me. It was two movies to me.
Fair.
And it's divided up into four parts, 4 acts. I don't know. They have 4 title cards throughout the movie, which I don't remember any of them and couldn't tell you anything about like the significance of them. But there's 4 separate breaks. There's the first part, which is everything up until the end of the we'll get into this will be very spoiler heavy. Yes. We're going to go beat by beat through this movie, so if you haven't watched it. But right up until Lizzie cuts her hand off, we see that for the first time.
Right.
Like, that was one movie, and then the start of another movie altogether, kind of with just like it kind of takes back from the events of the first movie, but it seemed like it was a totally separate thing, right? The original buildup is all I have somewhere on my notes here. I was like, oh, this is a zombie movie. Like, I got to that point where Lizzie's starting to get sick and everything, and I'm like, okay, it's a zombie movie. And then boom, there's just like cut and then totally different movie in the second half. It's like a weird like revenge porn movie in the second half, which so I was the whole time it was it jumps back and forth a lot. There's a lot of flashbacks, stuff like that. So it's not something that I wasn't paying attention to. Obviously, you can see I have 3 documents worth of notes on this thing, but it had my mind running in circles basically the whole time.
So should we get into the plot of The Perfection?
Yeah, I think we should, and let me bring up my kind of summary document.
Well, one of my favorite things to do is to read the official IMDb, which is the Bible for movies, to read the official description. And it says, when troubled musical prodigy Charlotte, who is Allison Williams, seeks out Lizzie, who is Logan Browning, the new star pupil of her former school, the encounter sends both musicians down a sinister path with shocking consequences. So that's very vague, but
true.
But the real plot of this is Allison Williams, who we will call Charlotte moving forward. Or should we?
Yes, we should. I have that written down a couple of times, but throughout my notes, I'm calling her Allison.
Okay,
the whole time.
All right. Charlotte or Allison. Is a just musical genius, and she kind of goes through some things. Her mom gets sick. She leaves the school, and she was at the top of her game. And then suddenly there's Lizzie, who comes in behind her and is at the top of her game, but sticks with it because she doesn't leave. And it has now pretty much overtaken her. And I think there's a really interesting part in the beginning where you can tell maybe there's a little animosity between the two, and Charlotte is going into, they're talking, and Lizzie's like, hey, Charlotte, you shouldn't be nervous around me. And it made me like it made me laugh and think it's the equivalent of like almost like Justin Bieber saying to the Beatles or something like, "Don't be nervous around me." Like it had a weird feel, and you could tell Charlotte's reaction was not too excited about her making that comment.
Right.
One thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah. So it starts out with you have Allison Williams like with her mom as her mom is literally like
Right.
dying,
Yep.
like on her deathbed, and we don't really know what's happening right away. And she dies, and then you kind of find out through this backstory of them, or kind of them explaining to each other how like their whole backstory that Allison Williams, Charlotte is they're both child prodigies, right? They've reconnected sort of at this this concert, this competition. And I don't know if the competition was in China. It was at least it was like a competition between these three like younger Chinese, like middle school age Chinese girls who are competing to get a scholarship into this like performance academy for the cello that Allison Williams' character and Lizzie have both come up through, like you said. And they come together. Like Allison Williams has just been off the grid for a while because her mom got sick while she was in the academy. She had to leave, and then she's kind of coming back into the fold here. And they meet up, and like you said, Lizzie is like the now world famous cellist,
right?
And Allison Williams has been away for forever, but they still like know of each other, and they meet here and reconnect. And these two, like, they can, for two people who have never met before, they cannot wait to fuck each other.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable. Like they apparently know each other's music backwards and forwards, which sure, okay, kind of get it. But like they meet and it's just instantly like, we got to get it on now.
The only comparison I have to this is probably myself and Ryan Reynolds. I mean,
it would be very much the same. Like I feel like that would be a one-sided version of that.
It could be.
But so this was, and again, like this section, when I'm looking at the page for this movie on Netflix, it's like LGBTQ movies. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and like right out of the gate, these two like fall for each other instantly and just have like, I don't know if they have sexual chemistry, but they just want to bang.
I think it's the equivalent of like a hate fuck. Like they almost like hate each other so much, but then there's some sort of it's really, the dynamic is really interesting. So they're at this, they're trying to pick out who's going to win, and they nail it in like 2 seconds, and they're like, all right, this is boring. Right. And Lizzie's like, well, this isn't really as boring as you think, because look at those people over there, and it's the parents of these three, and she's been following him, and she's like, that guy right there is standing next to his wife, but is really fucking the other girl there. So they do this like back and forth, and that's when you can really see.
In the middle of that, she's like, watch them, right? And the lady, this guy is standing next to his wife, and the lady that he's cheating on her with is like stroking his hand, and then like goes in for his balls. Like, it's so brazen. Like no one would do that.
Ever.
It's so crazy. Like they would just pretend they don't know each other.
Right.
It was so insane.
It was bizarre.
I loved it. It was amazing.
They pick the winner, and it's a no contest. And then they I guess, what are we calling him? The instructor says, hey, well, you two are both here. This has never happened before. Why don't you play together? Mm. And they end up playing this really magnificent piece, and then suddenly like all tension breaks loose, and they're making out in the stairwell afterwards. Like,
right. It shows them go like run away and start making out in the hallway. They go out to a club and are intensely making out like on the dance floor. Like I don't go out to clubs ever. I don't know if this happens at places like this, but
not to me. I don't know.
Definitely not to us, but it was an insane display of public affection.
And I would say one huge important plot point happens as they're leaving to go to the club is somebody is in the lobby and they suddenly start puking up this yellow, weird mucus type thing.
Yeah. And they kind of play it off like, oh yeah, like there's this like super contagious like outbreak going around in, I guess, like southern China, right?
Yeah.
I think they are in China for this contest.
Right.
maybe I wasn't paying enough attention, but I don't know if it was well established. Um, and no, like the way they describe it is like almost how you would hear about like bird flu or like
Yeah.
Ebola or something like that.
I was thinking Ebola. Like
No one reacts to it. People
Yeah.
are like, and this guy just threw up. It's crazy, right? Okay, anyway. And then like there's like a smash cut and then just like they're just talking to other people. Like no one freaks out. No one really does anything about it. So it's
but
like,
huge plot point.
but yeah, you can
Yeah.
tell, like I saw that and like right away I'm like, all right, it's Contagion.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be like a huge overarching theme.
Yeah. So then Allison and Lizzie go out, get hammered, and Lizzie had to leave the next day, right?
Yeah, she's going on vacation.
She's on like
or
a
something
2-week
like that. She's on a
vacation before
tour
she- yeah.
through China.
Yeah. So gets hammered, and the next morning, that night, magic happens, and the next morning she is like, I am hungover as shit. Like there is no way I can get up and leave in 10 minutes. And Allison's like, oh no, I got you. Like here, little hair of the dog as they call it. Here's some more booze. Take some ibuprofen, and
I wouldn't recommend.
ever. But here's some booze. Take some ibuprofen, and you'll be good in no time, right? So, they get up, and she also says, why don't we get a little food before we get on the bus, right? That'll help settle your stomach. And it started looking at the food made my stomach churn a little bit. I don't know if that would settle anybody's stomach. It was like mush with actual bones on whatever the hell they were eating. I don't know.
Yeah, for two like high class people. I mean, they're like classical music
Yeah.
prodigies, like insanely talented professional musicians. They go to some like back alley, this weird like
Yeah.
Chinese place in the middle of the street.
Which I guess we kind of find out maybe why later,
True,
but
yeah.
we won't skip ahead. So they then start to get on the bus, and actually instead of feeling better with,
Tell me about this bus. Now this is like a nice Greyhound, right?
yeah, it's similar to a nice Greyhound, but imagine the bus you rode to school if it had been about 40 years older and very dirty and had no air and the windows barely worked and a normal bus
Again,
type
they're,
thing.
They're going on vacation to
Yeah.
professional, very successful music, or at least one of them. The
Right.
girl whose vacation it is
Right.
is an
Yeah.
incredibly successful musician and has herself booked to get to her next destination on the
jankiest bus.
jankiest bus that exists.
So they get on, and Lizzie's like,
With no other tourists. It's all with
oh yeah,
like,
locals.
Chinese citizens.
Yeah, who don't speak any English. And instead of feeling better with the food and the hair of the dog, Lizzie's actually feeling a little bit worse. She's not feeling very well at all. And they get on the bus, and she's like, just kind of lay here. And she's really thirsty at this point, right?
Yeah, it's
she's
like it's right away.
yeah, I really need like water. I'm so thirsty. And so,
That's when it sort of starts. That's when it sort of starts to feel a little bit like a zombie movie.
Right.
Like, this is an uncomfortable because she's like, hey, like I'm really thirsty. Like, can I have some water? And she just like straight chugs this whole water.
oh yeah.
And then a second one like immediately. So you're like,
And Allison's kind of
something
looking at
is
her like,
way wrong.
yeah, you look really sick. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And she asked her several times, are you sure like you want to go on with this? And she's like, yeah, like we got to do it. I'll get feeling better, blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't, but she goes to sleep, and she's going to try to sleep it off a little bit. And then the bus takes off, and she wakes up, and they're in the middle of, I would say, less than nowhere.
Yeah, middle of nowhere, Indiana, where we live.
Right.
Well, where you
But in
live.
China.
Notwithstanding, it's
Yeah.
in China. There's just nothing around. It's just like villages and
Right.
shit like that. They're just on a road in the middle of a huge forest.
And I think at this point, Lizzie says, "Look, we've got to stop this bus. I am feeling really, really sick. Like we've got to stop it." And this is the first moment in the movie that I felt uncomfortable because Lizzie is phenomenal at this point. Like she feels so sick, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, I almost can feel the pain. She does such a believable job of describing how sick she feels and how she's like, my stomach is killing me. Like I'm gonna die. And then she's like, we gotta stop this bus. She's like, and then she's like, I'm gonna shit my pants. Like I'm literally like, I have no control over my body. I feel so awful. Like I'm cold. I have the shake. She's like, we have to stop this bus. And so Allison, being a great friend / lover that she is,
Sure.
tries to reason with the bus driver, and he's like, not understand.
First, so she like kind of gets up and she's like, "Does anyone speak English?" And like no one does anything.
Right.
And then she like gets up to the bus driver and starts like trying to get him to stop the bus. And then like after like 30 seconds or a minute of this, some guy's like, "Oh yeah, I do speak English, by the way," and he speaks like perfect English. So he's just like
I speak
not
English and
helpful.
Chinese. Let me see what I can
He's
do.
not helpful at all until this other passenger who is visibly like incredibly sick, who he has to have been able to hear the whole time.
Right.
And like he just like doesn't react, and then she's like, "My friend is sick, like she needs to stop the bus, she needs to use the bathroom." The guy's like, "All right, I guess I don't want someone shitting on this bus, so I'm gonna be like," so he's like, then he starts to talk to the bus driver for her.
Right, and eventually, after way longer than, but it like leads up, and you get more and more uncomfortable as you're watching it, because you're like, Lizzie feels like shit, like this is bad, and then the bus like keeps going, and the tension rises and rises and rises. Until finally he slams on the brakes, opens the door, and says, "Get off my bus, like, go do whatever you need to do."
Mm-hmm.
And so Lizzie goes outside and shits and pukes her brains
kind of at
out.
the same time. It's pretty horrible.
And at that point, she's like, okay, like, I think...
Yeah, she kind of gets better.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be...
For like a hot second.
Okay. And then they get back on. She needs more water, which is, again, a little odd. She's drank everybody's water on the bus at this point. And then, did the bus start going again?
Yeah, they take off again.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're like, okay,
oh yeah, because
in the middle of nowhere.
She lays down like, all right, I'm gonna rest it off. And then suddenly she like jolts awake again.
Mm-hmm.
And this time she's like, I am literally dying. And she cannot make it off the bus, let alone reason with the bus driver, and pukes.
She's like smacking her head against the window.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's before or after she throws up.
Yeah.
But she's like...
She like visibly is going nuts, banging her head against the window. Like at this point, you're really uncomfortable because you're like, what the hell is going on with Lizzie?
Yeah,
like,
this is literally like she's about to turn.
Yeah.
She's going to start biting people like and passing it around. And no, like to this point, the guy at the contest in the beginning is the only one who's been sick.
Right.
But I think around this point is where she's like, what if you're sick too?
Right.
To Charlotte.
Yeah.
So, and she's like, I'm not sick. Like but you can tell she kind of
like is worried. Like maybe I am sick.
Right. Like
maybe I haven't.
It's like she very well could be sick.
Yeah.
You know, they just spent the night together after it appears that she caught the sickness from some guy at this contest.
In the lobby. So. Yeah. So then she, after bashing her head against the window several times, and the bus driver, I think, yelling at this point, freaking out a little bit.
Pretty much everybody's screaming at each other.
So she pukes all over the window. She couldn't get the window down. Pukes all over it. And it's the yellow puke, but even more, it has maggots in it.
It doesn't have maggots in it. It is literally just like worms.
And she's
just like a huge strip of worms, and they're both looking at it like, what?
So Charlotte freaks out, and she's like, are those were in your body? And then Lizzie loses her mind. She's like, well, I have bugs in my body, which is going to be a huge point in a moment. She's like, what is this? And then eventually the bus driver loses his shit.
Right. So he's like, he kicks them off.
Yeah.
And there's a sequence where like, he's like telling them they got to go. And they're like, all right. And they like, Charlotte grabs Lizzie and she kind of takes her off the bus. And they're talking to the English speaking guy. And he's like, hey, there's a village like that way and a little bit like walk that way. Maybe there'll be a pharmacy, a doctor, something like that. You can help her. And then the bus driver throws their stuff out to them. And Allison Williams' character like loses it again.
Yeah.
Like kind of out of nowhere.
It was a little weird.
She was mad that they were getting kicked off, and then
but she thought
they were kind of okay.
Yeah.
And then he gives them their stuff.
It was a little bizarre.
Like, what the fuck you, buddy?
Yeah. Like I thought it was implied that they weren't getting back on the bus. And then she does lose her mind a little bit. So then they get off the bus takes off without them, and they're kind of screwed. And then I think she accepts like, all right, there's nothing else I can do. We have to get to this village.
Right. So then it starts to. So I have in my notes right here. this is going to turn into like this is where the zombie movie starts. This is going to be the road from here on out, right? I think it's just going to be like them surviving in middle of nowhere China, trying to find either some way to cure her or something like that, or it's going to turn into a zombie movie.
Yeah,
whatever's going to happen at this point.
But at this point, so they start walking down this road, and Lizzie's obviously upset. She's sick. She does not feel well still. She's not sure what's going to happen. But then she like starts scratching herself. Like she's like, why does my arm itch so bad? She's like, and then something moves like inside her arm, and she's like, what? Something is inside me. Like
it's very much like in the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie when like the scarab beetles are crawling all over people. You can just see them under her skin and everything like that.
So
and Allison Williams is like, what is inside of you? What is happening?
Right. And she had just puked straight maggots, and now her arm is like crawling, and they start coming out, right? So
they're like bursting through and like crawling all over like her entire body.
Yeah. And then the movie takes a weird twist when Charlotte, just as calm as can be, says, "You know what you have to do. You have to cut your arm off." And she pulls out a giant meat cleaver.
holding a meat cleaver out of nowhere, just all of a sudden holding it to the camera. You're like,
and at this point,
what's happening?
You think it's a joke because she literally just looks at her and she's like, "Lizzie, you have to cut your arm off." Mm-hmm. And Lizzie's just kind of like, yeah,
it makes sense to her. Like, these things are in my arm. Like, yeah, of course, this is what I'm going to do.
To cut my arm off. So she goes and finds a rock and puts her arm down, and then cuts it off. And then we go to scene 2, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So like the cleaver moment. That was the moment where I was like, okay, this is a hallucination of some sort. I think it's. At that point, I thought it was like maybe a dream sequence, or like she was like Lizzie was just like that addled by sickness,
right?
That's what she was seeing. But yeah, then we get to scene 2, and you get kind of this flashback rewind to the moment where they wake up in bed together,
right?
That previous morning,
and Charlotte and Lizzie feels like crap, and Charlotte's like, "Hey, how about some hair of the dog?"
Yeah, right. And you see the pill bottle that she has I think her mother's name on it. It's some sort of drug for whatever sickness she has. Says like
side effects, hallucinations could be much worse if you take with alcohol.
With alcohol, right. So you kind of start to see the whole thing play out from I guess Charlotte's perspective,
right?
Knowing that she intentionally is doing this to Lizzie.
So flashback to the first time when literally it crossed my mind that I've taken Advil and Tylenol and all this stuff before. And when she gives her the pill, I'm like, that's not ibuprofen, man. That's not...
I didn't think anything of that at first.
I thought
you're right.
Weird, because it's like this giant brown pill.
Like a horse tranquilizer or something like that.
That's not ibuprofen.
I've seen ibuprofen.
I let it go. And then now you're like, yeah, that was not ibuprofen. So she takes this, and then they go to the very nice dining establishment in the back alley.
Right.
And you see Charlotte walk by and just grab a meat cleaver.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be part of her plan until that very... Like, I was just like luck of the draw that there was some guy just hugged... Maybe that's why they went into the back alley, I guess, because she knew there'd be butchers just killing chickens and butchering them in the middle of the street. But yeah, that's where she grabs this. You see that everything... I mean, obviously she was actually really sick, like throwing up and shitting herself and all this stuff. But the bugs turn out to be a part of the hallucination.
Yeah. So she puked. There were no maggots in the puke.
And some of the lines from Charlotte start to make more sense. She goes, "That's bugs. It's got bugs in it."
Yeah.
Like just feeding into the hallucination or making it happen, I guess, possibly.
Yeah.
But there's a scene when they're first getting on the bus where she's like, "Oh, ew."
Oh, a bug.
And she pretends she sees a bug on Lizzie to try to like plant that in her mind. And then you get so that they take us all the way up, and you actually like right up until Lizzie chops her arm off left hand against right hand, right?
Right.
And then where are we when that happens? So we flash back again or we flash
Forward
forward
and-
to
Lizzie in the hospital.
the school. Maybe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Perhaps her in the hospital.
I think we go.
Yeah, there's like a short scene
No,
with
no,
her in
no,
the
we-
hospital, right?
No, yeah, I think she's in the hospital. But then we go to the school with the winner practicing cello,
Right.
and
Right. Yeah, it's the new student moving
Yep.
in, getting like the introduction to the place. They very quickly mention the chapel, which is like a room that's like acoustically perfect or whatever.
The only acoustically perfect place in the world.
It's kind of just a short thing that you don't really think much
Yeah.
of, but that'll kind of be a Chekhov's gun for later.
Yeah, and then it's at this point when you start to see maybe a little bit more that the instructor's off. You know, he's a bit weird, maybe a bit harsh.
I think probably on a second viewing, I might pick up on that a little bit. I didn't have anything about that. Like that didn't cross my mind. So they did. I thought they did a good job in hiding that until later.
Yep. So then there's a knock at the door, right? And the instructor goes out there, and it's Lizzie, and she's upset. And then he realizes she's also missing a hand.
She's got a very nice like stump like
A little
hand
nub, yeah.
on her right hand. And she explains that she was basically found in the like Chinese wilderness.
Right.
I think the bus people, they had talked about like sending back help when they got
Yep.
to their destination. So probably something like the police were sent, they found him. By the time she was just like drugged out of her mind, and by the time they got her in the hospital and got her fixed up, Charlotte's out of the country, nowhere
Right.
to be found. Right.
So Lizzie does remember or come to that Charlotte was with her and then disappeared, puts together that she drugged her with the hospital and all this stuff. So
Right.
is blaming Charlotte.
And,
for-
yeah, is recounting this to like the instructors at
Right.
the school.
Yes.
Right. So there's kind of a scene of her walking slightly afterwards, like walking down and being like looking in on the practice of all the students at the school, and then we move on to a conversation between Lizzie and Anton, who is the head of the school,
Right.
and his I guess another instructor, the lady. Paloma maybe
Yeah.
was her name.
Yeah.
I could not figure out what her relationship was to. I didn't know if she was like a wife or like another instructor or like a former student that was sticking around kind of in the same way Lizzie was.
Right.
But she's talking to them and they're kind of like, we don't really have a place for you here. They basically kick her out. They say, hey, we found a place, like we've got a place for you. We'll pay for it. We'll help you, kind of keep going, but we can't have you here because there's nothing
use
for you to do.
Right.
Like we have all the instructors we need. And she is very distraught by this, of
I
course.
mean, she
wants
offers
stay
to
there.
clean the bathroom.
Yeah,
she
yeah.
offers
She's,
to do.
she's like, I can teach, I can still compose, I'll scrub your bathrooms, I'll do
Yeah.
anything to stay here.
And Anton's essentially like,
we can't have it.
you can't play anymore. You're done.
I kind of understood like the reactions from both parties too. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, she's like, yo, I just got my arm cut off. Like, I don't have any other skills. This is what I was brought up to do. Like,
Yeah.
help me out here. Like,
I can't even work
I'm
at
not gonna go
McDonald's,
live.
man. I
I'm-
can't.
I'm not gonna go live on my own. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, they're like,
Sucks to suck.
yo, we're gonna pay for an apartment, like a place
Right.
for you. Like we'll set you up somewhere. You'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a very, very messy kind of split there between them, or so it seems. And there's a scene where she is, as she's like leaving, it's maybe like right after this conversation, they kind of excuse themselves and she's walking out. She's looking at all the photos on that they have hanging up on the wall of all their previous students and everything. And she gets to a photo of Charlotte, and she like freaks out and like punches it, maybe with the nub.
Yeah.
I didn't
She
catch
nubs
that.
it.
Maybe with the nub, maybe with her other hand. But then there's this camera shot of just like close up of her face, and she's like raging, and then like it just like does like a 360 barrel roll type thing, and she like becomes like less mad but just like more crazy, and it was a shot that I was very much like, come on, like there's a
A bad
little
shot.
I was like, it's a little on the nose, guys.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there's a snap in her character, right? And then the next scene we move on to is I think this is maybe another title card cut
Yeah.
right there,
Maybe
but then it like cuts to Minneapolis and we see
Charlotte at home.
Charlotte at home.
Yeah.
Right.
So Charlotte is at home cooking and cleaning and living her best life, in Minneapolis.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, was just there, not that great, right? Sorry, Charlotte.
Fair enough. Sorry, Minneapolis.
No kidding. So she's, hanging out, doing nothing of substance, and then hears something a little weird in the house.
It's a glass break.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
As she hears, and she like kind of goes and checks on it outside. Doesn't really see anything.
And then walks out of the corner, and out of the dark pops Lizzie in a hoodie and with a.
Yeah, I don't even really remember how this scene entirely went down, but it's mostly she tases her.
Right.
She's got like a little handheld taser.
Yep.
And then is like stomping on her face.
Yeah.
And it kind of cuts to black again, I think.
She was about to curb stomp her.
Right.
And then cuts to black.
It like cuts to black, or just cuts to the next scene, which is back at the school again.
Right.
It's called the Back Off Center.
Yes.
BACHOFF, Back Off, which I don't know if that was like
a play on
Back Off, or like, but it wasn't really relevant, so it's just a weird choice of name.
Right.
But so it's the two main instructors, right? The guy Anton, and then the lady, and they pull up, and Lizzie's standing there in front of her car, and basically is like, you kicked me out because I didn't have anything you wanted. Well, now I've got something you wanted,
and
I've got
Anton's
this
like,
chick in my trunk.
You got your hand back? And she's like, no, even better. I
Just you
kidnapped
wait.
somebody.
Just you wait.
So she says, I've got Charlotte in my trunk.
Yeah, and I didn't know. I was a little bit disappointed at this point because they like it kind of cuts again, I think, right there. There's not really a transition shot, and then all of a sudden it's
Charlotte waking up.
Charlotte wakes up on the couch, and she's kind of, there's a shot where she's kind of like cross-armed or something like that, or like she's like in this big hoodie, and you can only see one of her arms. And I was like, cut her arm off, guaranteed. But she didn't.
No.
It's just like she was totally fine, other than she had just been kidnapped. She wakes up, she's talking to Anton.
Yeah, but she's oddly a little weirded out about being there, right? I mean, she
was just kidnapped, which makes sense.
Yeah. You would think maybe she'd be a little more comfortable hanging out with Anton, but she was not. She was not happy at all with it.
Well, she shouldn't be comfortable hanging out with anybody because they all know that she literally
so she asked, like,
gaslighted a lady into cutting her own hand off.
Yeah, and where's Lizzie? Like,
right?
Where is she?
Right, because so at this time, I don't know. I could not figure out who the good guy was in this movie.
Right.
The entire time.
Yeah.
Like, is Allison? Was she a sympathetic character? Because I kind of did like the whole the first movie, as I'll call it.
Yeah.
Is us finding out that she's like a psycho, right?
Yeah.
And then she's on the reverse end of getting kidnapped, and it's like, was I supposed to feel sorry for her at this point?
Right.
That she had been kidnapped by someone who she literally cut her arm off.
Right. And at the beginning, too, about a minute into the film, which I love when this happens, she's listening to music and then goes nuts and just starts screaming. Like,
right.
And I'm like, whoa, okay, you gotta be on the lookout here. So that's playing in your mind early on. I would say.
Yeah. And it's kind of this is during the first minute when she's with her mother,
exactly,
who's dying.
Yeah.
So you kind of think it's like that bit
trigger
of a break.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of flashes of her in like a mental institution and getting like electroshock therapy.
Yes, exactly.
And those play maybe around this point again as well.
Yep.
Those same flashes play a couple more times in the movie.
Yeah.
But so while Charlotte wakes up and kind of confronts Anton, the main instructor, about like what the school is, and we get basically a flashback to her being in the school as like an 11-year-old.
Yep.
And it turns out it's like a rape dungeon.
Yeah, I would say the acoustic room is
right.
It's also maybe a very quiet room that nobody can hear you screaming.
Yeah, so perfectly acoustic for performances, and also incredibly soundproof.
And yes, that's the point where you really find out that Anton is a piece of shit.
Yes.
And this school is incredibly difficult, and Do you now find out why they have the tattoos, maybe, of the musical notes at this point, or is that a little later?
Yeah, it's kind of. I think
she's. Cool thing,
I think Allison Williams' character explains that she's like, oh, I saw that she had the tattoo, so I knew what she was.
Knew what she had to do.
Knew what she had to do.
Right.
And there's maybe a flash of Allison Williams having the tattoo.
There is, yeah.
Earlier in the movie.
Yeah. I think at this point they both have the tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the teardrop if you kill somebody, but different.
Very much.
Yeah.
So I have in my notes here. The first one, what the fuck is this movie?
Yes.
Around to this point.
Yeah.
And then the second one is this is only twists. Like this movie is just twist, 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 twist. And it's like now the instructor's the bad guy the whole time.
Yeah.
So, but is she still a good guy? Like again, still entirely confused who I'm supposed to be rooting for in this movie.
Right.
Because at this point it feels like no one because they all suck.
They're all pretty crazy.
But so next they have this whole confrontation about how basically she was abused and brainwashed kind of her whole life but she got out to Charlotte got out to because of her mother dying, right? She had to leave the school, so she kind of got out of the cult thing.
Yeah.
But Lizzie didn't, and that's kind of her motivation for everything that she's done to Lizzie.
Yes.
Is that she's like, I had to save her from you guys, so I had to make her useless so she would be brought out of your.
And she does this to Lizzie
cult.
too.
Yes.
Right. I mean, she says, Lizzie, like, I realize that it's a little extreme. I made you cut your arm off, but I did this for you. And you're like, okay, maybe it somewhat makes sense at this point.
Mm-hmm. So then, where are we here? There's a weird line that during the middle of this where they're talking about this and Anton's kind of like defending it or I don't know what he's doing, but there's a line where he talks about being like them playing and them playing in the chapel and playing the perfection, which is like just a perfect performance that's played there.
Yep.
Is being closer to God.
Yes.
Which I was like, is there a religious thing going on with this too? Is this a religious cult?
So we went from
I don't know if that doesn't really play into it much later.
Zombie to rape
movie.
To Passion of the Christ.
Right.
In like a 30-minute span.
Right.
Okay.
So after this, they kind of, I don't know how they detain Charlotte. Maybe she just is because she's just been kidnapped. But they take her into the chapel again.
And at this point, Lizzie is on Anton's side. And
I kind of don't think we know that yet. I kind of think they are like, you're both crazy. But then they take her down there, and Anton's like, basically, we're going to make you play. And then two of the other instructors come in, and then Lizzie kind of comes in, and you find out, like, oh, she's deep in this cult still.
Yeah.
Like, she is still on their side.
Yeah. Charlotte tried to save her life, and she's like, I don't care. These are my people, and you made me cut off my arm. Like, I'm going to kill you. So
then they dress Allison Williams up, and she looks phenomenal. Yeah. She looks really good throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like sort of towards the end,
less so.
Yeah. But she looks great the entire time. At the very beginning, that like Chinese inspired dress.
Yeah.
That did something for me in a weird
dress.
way. Yeah. She looks great.
Great.
But so they're going to make her perform, and she has to deliver the perfection, right? Or else she gets raped.
Yeah,
it's very clear.
And at this point, this is when you find out if you mess up a note, you get raped by Anton and possibly the other people.
I think basically everybody,
Yes.
But there's a couple flashbacks to her as like a young child. They're making a mistake, and there's like this weird there's like a shot of like Anton like fuzzy. Like out of focus, but naked, and you can see like dong.
Yeah,
you can see his junk hanging down, but it's just fuzzy. He like walks in front of her, and it was so. There's a weird lack of nudity for the amount of like sex in this. Like the very beginning when Charlotte and Lizzie get it on is like very graphic, but also like you don't see any nipple or anything. No. But it's a super R-rated movie, and they're like cursing and everything else. And maybe this is probably not the point for like a late 20s white guy to make. Like, where's the boobs, man? But it was just kind of an odd thing that I was like, they really went out of their way to like not show
make sure that there's no nudity.
And then
but
it's still incredibly R-rated.
Yeah.
But so that was I hugely sidetracked us, but we're at the
Charlotte's
performance of
tied
the
up,
maker.
yes, and now they bring her a cello and they say perform, and she says like I can't, like I'm not a professional, I cannot do this, and
Yeah, it's been made pretty clear that she was really, really good, but then when she went to care for her mother, she's not
picked up a cello except for the one time, and
yeah, she's not in practice.
Right.
She says she's an amateur now.
Yeah. So she starts to plays the whole thing. I couldn't find a mistake. I thought it was great, and she finishes, and she looks like weird, and Anton says,
There's a moment. So they bring in the new student before she starts
right.
playing. The new student who we saw like get moved in.
Yes, very
and
good
who
point.
won the contest for the scholarship there.
And Anton tells Charlotte, "Hey, if you do not play this as a perfection, the new student gets it." And she's like, "No, like you cannot do this. You can't put this on me.
She's
this
like,
is
do it to me, not to her."
Exactly.
She's like, she's just a child. It's her first week here or something like that.
So she plays this, and then afterwards,
she sits. Anton sits the new student down right in the front, and is just very creepily like has his arms around her shoulders, and then
very weird.
I couldn't find a mistake either. My ear's not trained enough, but
yeah,
when she does make it, there's a shot of like his arms like kind of like coming closer on like and like actually touching, like grabbing her shoulders, and that's the moment where you're kind of like, guess she fucked up. I don't know. It just looks like she maybe made a mistake.
Thought it sounded great. So she gets done, and he acts like he's going to take this new student and punish her for Charlotte's mistake.
Right.
And then he says, "Take her away." And he's like, "What do you think I am, a monster? She didn't make the mistake, you did. So now let's do the ritual. Somebody get us some shots, scotch, right?" I mean, that's apparently the first thing they do. So
yeah, right.
Lizzie offers up drinks to everyone, and then somehow Lizzie says, like, "Why don't you let me do it?" Or
so there's the student leaves. Anton and the lady. They just like berate her for like 5 straight minutes,
right?
Like before this, and then Anton and the lady instructor leave
to go get ready
doing for something. He says he leaves and he's like
he goes to a different room to get undressed.
He goes, "Come get me" when she stops biting, which is like, fuck,
right.
man, come on. But then so the two they have her chained up, or they chain her up. I kind of forget how it goes. And the two guys like are very menacing, and then Lizzie comes in and she's like gonna like penetrate her with her stump.
Yeah.
She's like, there's a line that's like, "I usually use my fingers, but I can't really do that anymore." Yeah. And then the camera just cuts to one of the male instructors, and he like laughs and like takes a drink, like, "Good one." But it's like she's horribly disfigured by this.
You're making my movie choice sound. This is not doing me any favors. So
we'll get to my overall thoughts.
So she goes up there and starts to nub fuck her. We'll say.
Yep.
And then both of the guys collapse.
Yeah.
And then Charlotte starts to like the nub fucking.
I don't think that's what's happening. I hope that's not what's happening. Actually, you know what? We're a sex positive podcast. If you're into that, that's cool. So there's another flashback at this point, and it's flashing back to the side of the road after Lizzie's cut her arm off, where they're talking, and Charlotte's like, "I had to get you out," that type of thing. And she's just cut her arm off, and she's like kind of fine again.
Yeah.
So like she's totally lucid. It seems like all the drugs are out of her system.
Or it's like adrenaline is making her like come to her senses.
That could be. But yeah, it's she's missing an arm, and she's like, "That's what I needed." So she's like totally fine. But they're talking, and then all of a sudden she's like kind of sort of agrees. It flashes forward to her breaking into Charlotte's house in Minneapolis.
She's
again.
like, "I should kill you.
Right.
You made me cut my arm off, but I think we need to
like,
get rid of it."
You're right. Yeah. Like this was like I had to get out.
Yeah.
I don't see how the only way to do that was to cut her arm off. I feel like she was very easily talked into like being like, "Hey, you're a part of an abuse cult. Like, we should stop this."
Yeah.
Or there's absolutely no explanation as to why she couldn't just like call the cops or the FBI on this like very easily explainable abuse house.
Yeah.
It's this guy who takes in 11-year-old girls for like a boarding school type of procedure, and I don't know, maybe everyone's just so in deep in it that
let's be clear that everything we've mentioned, there's not one policeman in the entire movie.
There is not.
And it also reminds me of one of my favorite quotes in Scary Movie 3 when he's like, yeah, you know, she scared the puppies, he hit the remote, really sick shit. My wife took her out to the old family farm and drowned her in a well. I thought a simple no was sufficient. Like that's the equivalent of I made her cut off her arm, but you could have just probably talked to her.
And even when, like I said, like she cuts off her arm, and then like Lizzie's kind of back with it, and she's like starting to come around a little bit. But yeah, so it flashes to that moment. We find out that Lizzie. I have written down here. I wrote, fuck this fucking movie. Another twist. Lizzie isn't on the instructor side. She was in on it the whole time. So she, I guess, unchains her. I think the next shot we see is
them going into the room where Anton and the the woman first.
It's her. Yeah, it's a woman first. So Anton is just like chilling, right? Yeah. Just chilling in the other room, drinking his drink. Yeah. The lady walks in, and he's like, "Is she ready?" or something like that. I forget what they talk about. She's like, Anton, and like I don't think she says anything else, and she just kind of like is like woozy, and then there's just a glory shot of her pissing on the ground.
Yes.
That I did not need. I didn't need that at all.
No.
But she like, pisses herself and then like falls down, and then fucking around the corner of the door, like. A little cartoonishly, if you ask me, they like kind of poke their heads out. Lizzie and Charlotte poke their heads out from around the corner, and like,
we're back in the hoodie gear.
We're here. Yeah.
Back in the hoodie gear, ready to fuck some shit up.
Right, and then so they're like, we barricaded all the doors, like everything's soundproof. No one's gonna hear it. What we're gonna do to you?
Right.
And there's a shot of Allison Williams' character takes a wig off. But she doesn't have really long hair to begin with. She has like maybe like shoulder length hair.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
She like takes her wig off, and she just has like shorter hair. And that's when we get the flashback to her in the mental institution where they were shaving her head and like electrodes on her head for to give her electroshock therapy.
Yeah.
So I guess that's meant to signify that she's not far outside of that, or like maybe that's been ongoing.
Right.
But yeah, she just has really short hair. I don't know why.
Still hot.
Yeah, it's worse though.
It's worse. So they essentially take Anton, and
there's like a big fight scene.
Right. Yeah, and they each get hurt. Another moment that made me say, "Oh, what the fuck!" When he takes the knife, puts it in her arm, and drags it up the entire arm.
That was horrible. It was almost like there was almost a little like foreshadowing of that, because you could see that because Allison Williams, she had attempted suicide before.
Yep.
She tried to cut her wrist before. There's a couple like just brief flashes of that, like her cutting her wrist in the bathtub, and then obviously she's fine. You can see scars on her wrist a couple of times, and they try to. Their plan she goes super overkill for Lizzie and cuts her arm off, but in America. Can't come up with one single handgun to just shoot this guy.
Yes, yeah.
So like they both have like kitchen knives. I don't even know if I don't know if they showed up with these knives. This was a cleaver situation where she's just like, yeah, there's knives in the kitchen.
There was 2 butter knives that that they had.
So there's a big tussle over those, and then like again a weird camera choice for me. Like right when the fight starts, there's like a first person. It's kind of like the chase camera on a game show where they like connect it to your chest and it's looking right at your face. They have that on Allison Williams, so you just kind of see her reactions and not really any of the fight that's happening.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, Anton a little bit has the upper hand. He, like, kind of gets, like, both of them on the ground. He gets a knife, and like you said, that's when he slices through her
very gruesome
very importantly, her left arm, not her right arm.
Yes.
But then as he's about to finish off Allison Williams, Lizzie gets like a fire poker
Yes,
stick
yeah.
and just like beats the shit out of him with her one hand, kind of cross body
Yeah.
like chops with
Yeah.
this implement and finally finishes the job on
Yeah.
him.
And at this point,
Or so we think.
the movie should end.
Yes, I agree.
But it doesn't.
It does not.
And the ensuing scene is weird, confusing, and ultimately hurt its rating pretty significantly in my book, because up until this point,
just this one scene.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
they're in the chapel,
Yes, they're back in the chapel.
and Lizzie has no right arm, Charlotte has no left arm, so they together are playing the cello.
Right, and they're all fancy again. Charlotte's or still with the short hair though.
Yes, playing it perfectly, and it pans out to Anton, who has
First off, it would be so impossible.
yes,
They had not done this. There was no planning. Allison Williams didn't know that her left hand was going to get
right.
completely maimed.
Playing perfectly, it pans out to Anton, who has no legs, cut off at the above the knee,
Right.
no arms, has an IV, possibly keeping him hydrated.
One would think it's like plasma or
Yeah.
something like that, because it seems to be like right away. It seems to be like instantly right after this fight.
See,
that's
where I disagree, because it looked like
Okay.
his like wounds were healed and he was just perfectly.
So they've been keeping him alive for
yeah
a long time,
and
continuing to
they're
torture
nicely bandaged up now. Like I feel like this is
him. Okay,
maybe a month later.
Okay.
It's which is what's weird to me too.
I can see that. That makes
And
sense.
they just play music, and he said it's the most bizarre and unneeded scene probably.
So he
ever.
also has his. It appears as if they've gouged his eyes out. 'Cause
Yes.
His eyes are
Yes.
sewn shut, and I think
Yes.
his mouth is sewn shut as well.
Yes.
Okay, so we're at. Anton is now
Weird.
quad amputee. He doesn't have any eyes. He doesn't have any eyes. Lizzie and Charlotte are tag teaming a cello,
Yes.
and they're playing for him, and that's kind of the last shot of the
Yes.
movie,
Yep.
right? But the shot of Lizzie and Charlotte playing is like they're like one's head is out to the right of the neck of the cello, one's to the left. They look like a two-headed person.
Yes.
It's a very, very weird shot, and just like crazy eyes.
Yep.
Like they've gone insane, and that's why this is happening.
Yeah.
And that's the last shot of the movie.
It is, yeah. So at this point, we will have very different takes.
I think so.
I think so. For me, when I've like told several people to watch this movie, and I'm like, it's a very dark and twisted movie. Like I'm not going to recommend or condone weird rape.
Anything that
movies.
anybody does
Yes.
throughout the entire movie.
But to me, why I enjoyed this movie is because I said at the beginning, audibly, it made me say, like, what the fuck is going on? Because this is the most twisted movie I've ever seen. And up until, like, there were some things that I did not like, but up until that last scene, if they had cut it there, like, I thought this was a really original movie.
Okay, so without the last scene, where would you have been at?
I mean, without the last scene, I'm probably at like an 8.5.
Oh boy! Oh my!
And I firmly, somebody told me this long ago, and I firmly believe that the ending of a movie can alter by a full point. So I ended at 7.5. So you know where I'm at. But its originality for me gets huge points. So this was super original, I think,
Yes.
like a very original movie, which is hard to do, it seems like, anymore. Everything's a remake or you've seen it before.
Well, yeah, like I said, like we talked about before, we're watching the first half of the movie, and we're like, zombie movie.
Yeah.
Zombie movie.
Yeah.
It's got to be a zombie movie. And it ends so far in the opposite direction of that.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's a lot of swerves, and they can be pretty effective.
yeah. So the scenes that make me like gasp or like
I see you doing a lot of that.
like maybe choke on vomit coming up. Like that's, to me, I really like that. I like a movie that can make me react.
Sure.
And this one certainly made me react. Maybe not all in good ways, but that's probably why the score that I have, and I would love to hear your overall thoughts, because I think what's going to happen is people, you will watch this and you'll say, Luke, this is why everybody thinks, like, nobody will ever listen to you when you recommend a movie because they're all garbage. And
Well, so you get that a lot,
yeah,
and I don't think I think you look for things in movies that the general population,
Yeah, that's fair.
like you said,
That's fair.
this was very original. It made you react.
Yeah.
So, and that's more if you're looking for, a standard movie.
yeah.
You're gonna go watch one of the blockbuster movies. That's
Yeah.
not really what you're.
This isn't like a
looking for in-
family film that you,
Sure.
you sit down and watch with the family.
Yeah, this is.
You really don't watch this with anybody.
It's not
Like,
Avengers, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to see like an action movie or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I did not like this movie. I did not.
We just talked about it for over an hour, and you're going to now say you did not like this movie.
Yes. I love talking.
So
about
that's
it.
the dedication.
It was a great movie to talk about. So the problems that I saw with this movie are, for one thing, and why didn't even talk about this right out of the gate? It tried to do too much in such a limited amount of time. Like the runtime is 90 minutes, and I think
Huge plus for me.
I think that's sure.
Yeah.
That is, of course, that probably added a point for
It
you.
probably did.
But so it's like a tight 90 minutes, and that's like, I think that's start to end of credits, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably like, you probably get like an hour 22,
Yeah.
something like that of the actual movie. And there's so many twists. One of the twists being Maverick is making an on-screen appearance.
We
right
have
now.
a kid.
we don't have
We
kids.
adopted us.
It's not. This is an LGBTQ movie,
Yes,
apparently.
yes.
So it just, like I said, it's just all the movie. The whole plot of the movie is twists. It's
Right.
just twist. There's like 5 of them, and so that's like, I was just like befuddled the entire time. Like, what is that? After like the third one, I was just like, I don't even know. Like, I'm not going to be surprised by the next one. And then, of course, I still was. I was like, what the fuck is happening? But so it's just, there's
much
something
going on?
to, yes.
Yeah.
So I think if you flesh it out, if you add a little more time, because the whole first half of the movie, right, until I think like the 45-minute mark, is like that first part with them traveling together.
Yep.
And that's when the first twist happens. And then there's like 3 more throughout the second
Yeah.
half. So I think if you add like 15, 20 minutes of space between.
So it's not
some of the
twist,
stuff at the
twist,
end.
twist.
Yeah.
You're
and
just
like,
getting used to the first twist, and then another one happens.
right. Say like when Lizzie gets kicked out of the school, right? Then basically the next thing that happens is she kidnaps Charlotte.
And then
Right?
it shows back.
If you go back and spend 5 minutes with Charlotte, just like showing what her day-to-day life, you don't have to do anything crazy. All you have to do is kind of show how she's adjusting to what,
Right.
like how she is able to
Rationalizes,
obey authorities.
yeah.
Like someone clearly was maimed at your instruction.
What happens in
basically.
China stays in China.
I guess so. I don't know. But so I think if you just do a couple little things like that to spend some more time with them, and there could have been a good 10 minutes of making Charlotte a more sympathetic character at the end.
Yeah.
Like again, in my mind, there's not a good guy in this movie. They're all horrible.
All a bunch of a-holes.
Yeah, and so my score, I ended up on 4.1.
Okay.
I would say if 5 is my average, right? If 5 is an average movie, this is with a couple of adjustments, I think it could get to average. It's still not something that I would like seek out and watch.
Right.
I think the novelty of it, of all the twists the first time, would probably damage repeat viewings.
Yeah.
Like you may go back and see, oh yeah, he did kind of like
Right.
this guy was a little creepy from the get-go, but I don't think there's enough flashbacks and stuff like that where you kind of get that during your first viewing too.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a lot of rewatch value for me, but this was it's a fantastic movie to talk about because there's just a ton going on.
So would you recommend, I mean, we've obviously talked about it at this point. Would you
Sure.
recommend people watching it once?
I would recommend watching it in that same capacity as this is a good talkable like bad movie.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for something that and it's got like okay production values. One of the notes that I had on here was when they're playing the cello, I don't think those actors probably are classically trained cellists.
Yeah.
It looks really
Looks
good. You
great.
can't tell that it's not them
Yeah.
playing. Where a lot of times when you have like an actor trying to play a musical instrument or something like that.
It's brutal.
So the production values are pretty good. There's some weird shots. I don't know that the acting is bad at any point.
Yeah.
There's no noticeable moments like that, but it's just a weird story.
Yeah.
So,
Very weird
but yeah, I think I would recommend if that's the type of movie that you're looking for. If you're looking for something that's not necessarily very good, but something that's
disturbing is like the word that I use.
Yeah, it's entertaining to watch just because there's so many talking points about it and trying to figure out what's happening in it.
Yeah.
I think I would recommend that people watch this, especially before this podcast. It's probably be a good. We're at the end of an hour and a half of talking about it.
You could watch the movie in the amount of time we've just talked about it. Like that's saying something.
We basically went beat by beat through it. So, but there's just it moves. It's pretty rapid fire.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you got like 82 minutes of actual movie, so you can cover a lot.
So, you have more on the movie?
I don't. That wraps it up for me on the movie.
Yeah. At this point, if there's something that you think we should watch, absolutely let us know. We'll pretty much watch. I think it's safe to say we'll watch anything.
Yeah, we'll watch anything. And I kind of, we want to sort of keep it in the same vein. I don't want you to tell me to watch the new Aladdin movie and review that. Right. We're not going to do any of those sort of like big blockbuster movies.
Yeah. We want to watch a really bad Netflix original.
Yeah, it's something that we don't have to pay money to rent on Amazon. That would be great too.
It's probably got to be streaming just for simplicity for all of us.
Right.
I think is a caveat we should say.
Yeah, and we could be the originals guy. We could just do like Netflix originals or Hulu originals or whatever. We can do those type of movies. Those movies are great. So if you guys have anything that you want us to watch, want us to review, and get our thoughts on, let us know on all of our social media outlets. We're at Opinions Anon Pod on Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah.
The Opinions Anonymous website is opinionsanonymous.com.
Yeah.
So go leave us a comment somewhere.
Let us know. Yeah.
Let us know what you guys want to watch or you want us to review.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be scrolling through Netflix originals all the time and just deciding stuff and then telling you guys to watch it.
And if it's like Mickey Mouse, I've probably already seen it.
Yeah, anything that's in the like less than 3-year-old genre.
I've already seen it, so not rewatching.
And also nearly 1,000 other titles on IMDb.
Yes.
So maybe throw like 3 or 4 out there, and
yeah.
that'll increase our odds of you not having seen it already.
So until next time, this has been Luke's Movie Reviews.
This has been Luke's Movie Reviews, episode 1. So.
Episode 1. A little mixed feeling. I can't wait to the day where we agree on one.
I
maybe never.
Maybe never.
Yeah,
maybe
we
never.
have strong differences in our taste, I would say.
Yeah, I would. So I'm coming from a little more of the like fan of the blockbuster movies.
Right.
There's certain things certain kind of off the grid movies that I do like, but my tastes are pretty traditional.
Right.
So I'm glad that we've got like a nice division here.
Yeah.
Get a couple different points of view here.
Yeah. Excellent. So thank you. If there's a movie you want us to watch, remember, throw it at us. Social media, website, text us.
Yeah.
You probably have our numbers, right? If you're
watching. Throw it in the Discord. The Discord server. Which we haven't potted very much recently. We haven't had a chance to plug it, but go check out our Discord server. I don't know where the link is. We'll tweet it out again.
Yeah.
Before this episode drops. But yeah, be a part of the conversation and just let us know what you guys want to see.
Yeah. All right. Till next time. Been Luke, Andy.
I've been Andy.
Maverick.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.